welcome to my podcast. Look, TJ, the goal here is to talk to people and share stories about the whole purpose of the Story Edge is to inspire and connect busy business leaders to stories that inspire and that help them around their content creation, right? Content creation, their business, their lives. So the main purpose of this is to just tell stories that matter to people that care. And the more that people actually understand how stories, good stories, real stories, can change lives, and then that can actually be an ROI in your business. That is what I'm trying to inspire here. So I do that by connecting with people like you. I mean, my case study, you haven't seen it yet, was based on you and M5 and what we achieved last month, and I think because I had to obviously sit back and think what worked. And for me, what worked, the number one thing for me that worked was your mindset. And having that mindset and having that, this is what's going to happen, guys, this is where we're going, is one of the critical elements. So this is definitely something I want to talk about today. And growing that and building that. And then obviously I want to jump into your story. I want to jump into your background. We want to just talk a little bit about that and then flow with it and see how it goes into the lessons that we can have for people around navigating not only these times, but I think today I'm feeling a strong essence around the mindset and the maintaining that good feeling. Doesn't always have to be a good feeling, but maintaining that steadfastness around business, around keeping that I'm sure you have to take that energy into your family life, with your kids, with your wife, and that type of thing. So that's where I'm sort of sitting at.
Okay, cool. Let's shoot.
All right, cool. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to the Story Edge. This is the place where we talk to awesome people and we share stories that matter with people that care. And you know, like I couldn't find a better person to have a chat with today, Mr. Taurai Jack. Welcome, Taurai. How you doing, man?
Yes, sir, brother. How's it going?
Awesome. So Taurai I'm going to give you a moment to just introduce yourself to the listeners, to the viewers, and but I just thought okay, but I'll jump into it later. Just please let us know. Tell us who the man Taurai Jack is and what do you do?
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Marlon, for inviting me. That's number one. Number two, hey, Taurai is just he's just a man like any other man. They're facing the same challenges that we all face with on planet Earth. And with just a big drive in terms of doing stuff that matters, and doing stuff that matters to me, stuff that matters to my family, and just making sure that each day I progress from yesterday. And I've been doing that intentionally for a while now. I can safely say for around about 6-7 years, and the results have been showing in both of my life in terms of finance, family, business, and I love also creating businesses and making them run. That's the other thing that I enjoy doing. I write books with the intention for people to actually just jump in there and get as much knowledge so that they can help themselves. And I'm a host. I like to educate other people as well. So, you know, I'm more for the people and for myself. You can't save the world if you can't save yourself.
Agreed. 100%. I mean, Taurai, he didn't really mention it, but he is he's a property investor. He's a property guy. As you can see the book in the back there, Property Mogul. And I mean, like, that is the overarching goal, right? That is the legacy, right? That you're part of, or maybe part of that legacy that you wanna be known for, leave behind, right?
100%. So I mean, my everyday life, I just gave you the synopsis of who I am, but my everyday life in things that brings butter and bacon onto the table is I do property investment. That's what I do every day. And with that, we operate here in South Africa in 4 cities. I'm a partner I'm a partner and I've got 5 other partners that I've got. And with that, all we do is we specialize in 2 things, and it's affordable accommodation. We do know it is the country's problem, and we also focus on student accommodation. Again, we all know that it is a problem. So I'm out there in the real estate, but solving the problems that are there whilst I'm also making some money. And we've been at it for the last 5 years. And my team and I, none of us actually came through from a background of real estate. We've been learning, implementing as we go along. With all of that, we have now built a business which is in 4 cities. We've got roundabout just above 200 tenants. I think in our Q3, we're around about 217, 220, somewhere there. And we have just above 350 students that we are also housing in different properties in our coastal side. And yeah, that number might just double up by the time this recording is out, because there's a few deals that are under the belt.
Awesome. And so there's a whole lot of things that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Just going back, like, into when you were talking about the type of life that you try to create and the way you think about things. I mean, what you said, like, you're intentionally creating this type of life for the last 7 years. I think that was the number. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because there's a big perception that we don't really have an element of control of our lives, and we kind of at the mercy of things. And I just want to can you talk to me about that? I mean, what did you sit down and do to actually consciously create what was happening over the last, what developed over the last 7 years?
Yeah, so Marlon, for me, it's not about 7 years ago. It's actually from the time of BT, before Taurai. And before Taurai was there, my mom and my dad, they kind of like got together. And by the time that I was born, only my mom was there. My dad had long made, I think he had gone to buy something, but he hasn't come back up to now. And my mom then looked after me for like 2 to 3 months. And then after that, she also decided, let me go and look for this guy here. And she also never came back. And she just left me, dumped somewhere. And in my book, I talk about it. And that's my history. I was dumped, and, I was then taken in with another family, and I'm still here. I'm alive today. But the point is that from that moment onward, growing up, that was my normal. I didn't see anything else that was wrong with it, because that was my normal. Only when people would ask me, your parents' surname and your surname is different, how come? Things like that. That's when it started triggering in, like, oh, okay, these are not my parents. And I would go home and then I'll ask the question. But in our household, they were my mom and dad, and my foster father then later on passed on when I was around about 21. And I have the privilege now to be looking after my foster mother right now. But when I started working, Marlon, the one thing that used to trigger me was that I always used to wonder, how come some other people earn more than I do? Or how come they have more than what I have? And I know factually that all of us, we do have 8 to 24 hours in a day. 8 hours that you're designated to work, and 24 hours God has given you that nobody gets 25. So how is that happening? And I remember, it would come in, it would worry me, it would go away, it would come in. And I remember when I was a young manager now, and I was now getting exposed to senior executives. Just started seeing and all of those things. And I started studying, but this type of studying, I was just looking out at different individuals, people that I was liking in the workplace. The one day I was flying out to Ghana, and I was on the airplane, and this guy here, he was with his entire family. And the boys from Ghana, they're not like us in South Africa. We have 1 or 2 kids. They got more kids,
Yeah.
Right? So all of his family was with him. So I'm like, he's in first class. I knew how much the bank had paid for me to be on that flight. And it got me to asking. So I asked the question, what do you do? And we started talking and things like that. And he then told me that, he's an entrepreneur. And I was like, oh, okay. So maybe I need to start to looking into this entrepreneurship. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just started any other business. And with starting off any other business without knowing, Marlon, you are going to get a beating. It's just fact, because you don't know what you're doing. But out of it, I then kind of like started going out there, exploring. I would attend seminars. I started listening to people, and I kind of like hold back, and I'm like, okay, Africa is perceived to be a third world country. If what I am trying to learn is potentially something that has been done in first world countries, maybe I should look more into the first world countries on what they are teaching their people right now, because potentially that's what we could be learning in the next 5 to 10 years, because of that difference. So I started zooming in quite a lot in terms of other people there. And I realized, hold on, people actually don't just wake up and go to work. They think about how the work is going to be. They plan on how the day is going to be. They plan on a week. And by the way, poor people kind of like plan on an everyday basis. Rich people, they're planning on years. Like the real wealth, they're thinking in terms and planning on decades, right? And I started thinking, like, my thinking is like on a level of tomorrow, what's going to happen. And I realized, Flip, I'm poor here. But I had a good job. I was traveling throughout Africa and things like that. And I used to think that I had arrived. I mean, I was chauffeur driven when I get into a country, and the executives in the country would look up to me and things like that. And I just realized that all of that was a facade, because at some point it could stop. And I intentionally then wanted to start building my own. Because when I was at the bank, being employed at the bank would leverage off my thinking and my time to create stuff. So I would go into Africa, man. I would take products from here, from South Africa or from the UK, and I would literally introduce those products into a country. Zero money, right? And we'll make that product work in the country. I'll go and sit in a country for like 2 months, 3 months, and then eventually I come back home and we start tracking to see how that is progressing. And I was like, I can do this on my own. But what can I do that on my own? So I went into various things, man. I went into chickens, I went into cars, car rentals, and I went into diapers, would sell diapers at some point. But eventually the stuff that has really kicked in for me is real estate, which is just investing in real estate. So that's all I do now, and obviously educating other people. But it really comes from where are you in that space and time. In the end, for me, it's not about your age group or even your race or even your gender. I was going to say even your sex, but it doesn't really matter where you are. It's just about taking stock of where you are, because when I was employed, that's the one thing that we used to do quite a lot, taking stock, right? How is it performing? What do we need to tweak? And for me, I was just living life. There was no taking stock, right? So the number one thing here that I started implementing, and I still do that up to now with all my business partners, is we take stock. What does that? What does taking stock mean? What is it that we are doing now versus the performance that we are getting, or the results that we are getting? Then you want to look in the in between, which is the performance. How best can you actually increase it to get the results that you're looking for? Or if it's not working, why are you still wasting time on that? So change it. If you change it, then you change the results. So it's just as good as sleeping. We all want to get a beauty sleep, but a lot of us then, we're not spending time in actually tracking how many hours am I sleeping. So you don't know. You just know that you need to go to bed at 10 o'clock or at 8, but are you being intentional around it? So intentional just means that you are aware of the situation, and out of being aware, you are intentionally wanting to change it. So you start looking for information around you. The libraries are there. There's so many people that have written books about anything that you're looking for, right? 200, 300 Rand, you can get that. And out of it, you can then consume. And for me, I read a book and I'm like, oh, there's about 20 things in here that I need to learn, but I can't implement all of it. So I implement 3 to 5 things, right? And all it's doing is just moving my dial from who I was yesterday to who I am today. So I'm just like a version 1.1, and the next day I'm on version 1.2, and that's it.
So there's a couple of things there, so I wanted to just roll back on what you said, especially the journey of trying a number of businesses before settling into something that you can find passion over, and something like this is the spot. Because many people are like, I want to start a business, but I just don't know how. I want to get started. I want the things that, because you saw that man in first class and he was like, I've got this and I'm an entrepreneur. That's how I do. And then so now you're like, I want that, but how do I get started? And you went about finding certain things. And I think there's this massive fear of people failing, which is why they're not getting started in things, which is why they're not taking that little road. Because many people, even some of them go through, get into this, we'll call it analysis paralysis, but actually it's just, in fact, when I was more in the space of the healing world, I used to be, even myself, in the space of like, I will go into course after course after course after course, implementing about very, very little to nothing of what I learned. But the proof is in the pudding, right? So going through that, I mean, you had some massive wins and failures in that process of going through those different businesses before you landed at, this is where I'm at. And it made you into the businessman you are today. So could you speak a little bit about that in terms of being open to that level of change, so that now that you can go into a group with your team and say, guys, this we need to scrap, this we need to keep, this we need to change, and we need to take stock of the right things here so that we know which direction we're going in.
Yeah. So Marlon, I am privileged because I think I just, besides just doing life, my life has been very much intentional. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I'm Christian, and out of that, I go to church and I serve in my local church. And my senior pastor, who preaches almost like every other weekend, before he was actually a pastor, he used to be a businessman, right? So in all of his teachings, the teachings are very much practical around, yes, biblical, but how practically can you do that? So, like, how can you implement it? And from week in, week out, every Sunday, the message is very much driven around what is the practical things that you can do. So it's not just, fairy tale, we need to cast out demons out there. And by the way, no no slaying on casting out the demons. Yes, we need to cast them out, but when we've cast out the demons, then what? Life still needs to be enjoyable. Now, having said that, Marlon, I think for me, what's really been stacking over the years, I've been serving in my local church for the last maybe 10 years or so, and my pastor is continuously talking about, or should I say, driving the message of, in life, when man was created, everything carries some form of a risk. Okay, and it starts from just waking up. Just waking up alone, it is risky. You can be staying in your third floor in your 2-bed, one bathroom apartment, and just moving from your feet off the bed to the ground. That is extremely risky but we trust the foundation that is there, right? So we can walk up and down whatever unit that we are staying in, right? But we go to bed. We go to bed underneath a roof. That roof can come down at any time, right? But these are the risks that we have now inherited, and we're like thinking, it won't happen. But it does happen. We read these stories all over the newspapers and things like that. But the thing that I want to then speak to Marlon is that taking risk in life is the fundamental case point of winning. So you can't win without taking risk. And if you are thinking that whatever that you are wanting to do is too risky, or someone else comes through to you and then, you have introduced them, it's like saying, hey, you know what, I want to go and fill out some cups like these ones. And then someone is already saying to you, no, don't go and do it. The only reason why that person is saying that or giving you the negative stuff is because potentially they don't know how to mitigate that risk, right? So, like for instance, in my team, if you look into my entire team, the team that I belong into, I've got Rita, she's good on numbers and things like that. So she plays accounting and CFO in our team. I've got Elise, she looks after our legal because she's an attorney. I've got Yubed who looks after developments because that's what he does. So if something is risky in terms of development, Yubed went to school for that. That he went to learn how to do that. So it's going to be risky for me, but I'm going to ask him, how do you do this? And he's like, well, you put a brick here and put a brick here, and you go to the council and it's done. You get the compliance. Oh, really? So because that you might be seeing something as risky, it just means that either on your team, there is no one who's got the right information, or number two, within your circle, there's no one who has the right information to mitigate that. Or thirdly, you are too lazy to be wanting to get the information yourself so that you can remove the risk. Right. But the moment that you remove the risk, the only other thing that is there now is for you to do. Right? I'm a doer, man. That's all I am. I am a freaking doer, and I am proud of it, and I enjoy doing stuff. Right. Right? You put me in any environment, if I don't know anything, like this wasn't a good skill for me when I was in school, but it's now a good skill now. It's actually my winning skill. And this winning skill, we might need to delete this somewhere along the line. It's copy and paste, So when you're in school, copying and pasting is not allowed because you're a cheater, isn't it? Right. But when you're in business, copying and pasting with just a small improvement, you can make serious money. Yeah. Right? We can think of it. Who started off with chicken? KFC, Nando's went in to do the same. We can name so many guys out there. But that's what it is. It's about copying. I can copy anything and I can implement it some way, but I always implement it with a bit of a flair of myself. And when I do that, obviously now you're solving someone else's problem, right? And then you try it out. Then that's where the risk comes in. So it is good, yes. And I want to speak to the point of sometimes we, like I enjoy food from Woolies, man. I'm a big fan of Woolies. We see those nice things at Woolies, right? We all want to buy it because it's the end product that we can literally, the process of us consuming the food. Anything at Woolies is round about, maybe about instant to round about 30 minutes, right? So the enjoyment moment is instant, right? But take the same food in different other stores, you actually now need to go and process it to make it work, to put in a bit of seasoning, and what you're doing a try and error, and that's what entrepreneur is all about.
Right.
And why have Woolies made so much money? It's because not a lot of people are willing to be doing this entrepreneurship if they had the money. If they had the money, they want to play in the Woolies space because everything is instant.
Yeah.
But being an entrepreneur, it's about going out there and you're like, what is the problem? Right? Yes, you've got a goal of making money. That should be a no-brainer for everyone. You gotta make money. But for me, in all the businesses that I've done, I've always looked at it from a perspective of what is the problem that I'm solving? My first business was a car rental business. And this was before Uber, this was before you Taxifies and all of these other companies that have now mushroomed for renting out cars. And the biggest problem that we had lots of people that didn't have cars, lots of people that could afford to buy cars, and the likes of the Avis and Tempest, they were the only car rental cars that were there. But there was no one who was saving the community of cash hires. Right. People that had cash, people that had no credit cards, people that didn't. And that's the gap that I said. And I made good money out of it. Right? Mm-hmm. And I went in without knowing much, but I solved a problem and I did well. Right? The other business that I also started off was I knew that a lot of people in the townships don't have 150, 160 rand to go and buy diapers. But they want to have their kids to have diapers. And by the way, it's a very good business. Kids are always pooing all the time, right? So you're never out of business, right? So, and I looked at them like, hold on, these guys that are making the Pampers and all of them, they're always making packs in 40, in hundreds and things like that. Maybe what I need to do is to go and buy them for 90 rand, okay? And I then repackage them. So you kind of like repackage them out of there and in smaller little plastics, and you now sell them off at maybe like 20, 30 rand for 4 or 5. You know, I'm just throwing out numbers.
Right.
And market was there. Why? Because the people could only afford nappies for that day. So they would come and buy one nappy, right? But obviously now you have costs of having people where you're going to be living, all of these and things like that. And I made good money out of it, right? But out of all of this, Marlon, what I realized was that there was a lot of learning that was happening. I was learning stuff. So yes, you want to have a business that's making you money, but what kind of money, right? Because there is working hard money, and there is working smart money, and there is no work money, right? So diapers, extremely risky. We could get hijacked at any time. The money could be gone. And car rentals, the car grew legs and they could disappear. Tracker couldn't find them. These are all risks that we had. We knew about them, and my wife and I, we were comfortable with them. But now the point there is, if you're comfortable with the risk and when it happens and it's now an issue, can you still be able to solve it? And some of them you're not able to solve it. You have to live with them. It's inherent, right? And it's the same thing with real estate. So for me, as I started journeying in, I actually now started to understand there is different types of business with different type of effort. But what are the businesses that I wanted to get involved into? And without you getting your feet wet, you can never learn, because you're always going to be on the bench and you are always going to be saying, you should do it that way. But if you're not in it, you can't actually live it. So the whole idea here is, when I went through all of these businesses, Marlon, it was finding myself in business? Who am I? Right? That was number one. What businesses do I enjoy being? Number three, what kind of clients do I like to save? Right? Because that's also important, because an LSM client who's in the township is very much from the Santon LSM, right? So which one do you want to save? Which one are you comfortable to save, right? Because the other one can be paying so much money, but they're extremely finicky about life. And the other one could be paying you no money at all, and they don't care. You can get away with anything.
Yeah.
So what is it that you like? Who are you as well in all of this? What characteristics of an individual are you? Are you the bubbly person? You want to be around people all the time, saving people? So the business is, the moment you start a business, you're going to learn. And you start learning stuff about yourself. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the business that you're starting needs to be the business for the rest of your life. You can start business and shut down and continue after you've now discovered who you are. It's the same concept of going to work.
Yeah.
A lot of people started off with being in call center agents. I started off in a hotel, right? But you then progress and like, I don't want to be answering phone calls for the rest of my life. But I've also met guys who've been 20 years, 30 years being a call center agent.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking about really important stuff. Some things you can't actually get where you want to go. It's not well, yesterday actually became very, very apparent to me. You can't, progression is not a straight line, right? And in this context especially was more around just like health and feeling good. And I realized with just wanting to be a specific weight, have a specific body, I was like, wait a second. I realized that, you know, this is it's not a straight line to wherever you want to get to, whether it's up or down. You're going to have this increase in weight. You're going to have this decrease in weight. Your body is going to shift in one way and move in another. And in the same way with business, it's the same thing. Like I was never completely marketing, but things throughout my life, it was just different signals that were showing me, because like I also started in a restaurant, right? And many people have not put themselves, maybe they have a little perception of other people, what they think or whatever, and have not been willing to let that go, to say, I'm gonna go and do this in order so I can get money, because that's the first plan. Let me get some money. But when you start to get it like, wait, I don't want to get money like this. I would prefer to get money like that, because I see this person engaging, I see this person doing things, and they're not worrying so much. So like you said, you either go and ask them, or you learn about from others that have got that have made that way, that have found a simpler way to get there. I mean, I love the thing of your analogy of just talking about playing the game, because a really great analogy I heard was, you can't play football by sitting on the bench. It's just impossible. You have to be playing on the game, and then you have to choose a position. You know, I'm going to be
100%.
Goalkeeper, or I'm going to be the striker, or I'm going to be the midfielder. And from there, you can't be a midfielder that's going and running around saving the ball with your hands. You're just not going to be playing the right game. So, or in the middle of the game, just pick it up and start bouncing it around. It's just, you have to play the game, understanding the rules, and then through that saying, okay, wait, maybe football is not really my game. Maybe I should move over to basketball. You know, and these, excuse the whole sport analogies and the health analogies, but I mean, they're all sort of interlinked, right? So I love that. And so where did you, when you started to now pick your education and pick, where am I going to learn? What are the tools? Because I see there's a lot of books back there. So you read a lot?
Well, I mean, the books, yes, I read quite a bit. you see, Marlon, when you're coming from a disadvantaged background, and for me, actually, it's not just about being a disadvantage, because disadvantaged, a lot of times it is taken in different connotations, and sometimes I'm not happy with it. But for me, just looking at disadvantaged in the terms of, and I want to quantify my disadvantage here, having just grown up in a neighborhood where people think that life is, when you've arrived, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. So the circle or the thinking of the community is, it's ring fenced.
Right.
When you are talking about being an engineer or a water scientist, people are like, what is that? Because nobody in your family has ever been like that. I'll give you a very good example. I've got an older brother who's 10 years older than me. My brother was invited with the army to come in and coach the army.
Okay.
And my parents at that time, because they'd always seen the army as war, they discouraged him. And at that time, I think he used to watch quite a lot of, there was a series called 12 Jyoti at that time in time, and he also freaked out. So he lost the opportunity. 6 months later, a university from the state wrote to him, gave him a phone call and said, come and we'll give you a scholarship to progress your basketball, but we want you to be a coach at the local school, free boarding, free, and this was in the States, and this is like early 90s. But here's the thing, Marlon, no one in my family had ever gone anywhere. So guess what happened? He didn't go nowhere.
He didn't go? Oh my goodness.
No. I remember there was a big meeting around it. Not to fundraise, but to discuss what it could be. This could be a scam. If he goes, he might not come back. Sure. How many people have gone to the States and never come back? What if something happens to him whilst he's there? A good 1 hour of, so I think it's about 12 siblings between my dad and my mom, and all of them, they said no. Why? Because none of them had ever been exposed to the thinking. That's number one. None of them had been exposed to the States. But hold on, we were watching TV all the time, and potentially all of the programs that we were watching were from the States.
Right.
Right? But they didn't see it that way. Now, coming from a society like that one, I quickly realized, Marlon, that when I started working, I started seeing people that would come to work wearing dresses. They were the Muslims. I used to call them dresses because I didn't know that they were Muslims, because I just grew up in the community of Christians.
Right.
So I started thinking, oh, so there's actually another community out there of people that are very different from me.
Right.
I started seeing people that would come in wearing a small hat, and it was the Jewish. And what made me, I started now being inquisitive, and this is the bad thing about staying in a close-knit community where you just, you yourselves, you know, if you're Portuguese, you're just Portuguese people, and you're not, explored to anything else. But with that learning, I started now intentionally wanting to go out and learn about Portuguese, to learn about the English, the Muslims, and things like that. Not that I wanted to change my belief or anything like that, but I wanted to learn the difference. But I also realized that it was expensive for me to actually go in and learn from them, because they were teaching me what they have. I realized that you can actually consume the same information in books. And if you buy those books, they are yours, you can keep, you can make reference to it. And by now you engaging with someone else who's Muslim and you've studied their culture, when you're now engaging, you can engage them, you can greet them in their own language, you can greet them in their own doings of their own culture.
Yeah.
Automatically, you are at par because you're giving the respect to who they are. They're going to be open up to you, right? As opposed to you actually going in to be like, so what is this? Like people slaughter and all of those things. I got no problem with slaughtering. Do your thing. But I just want to understand why you're slaughtering.
Yeah.
And why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the next time when I hang out with you, or when I know the moon is that way, hey, I'm going to send you how was the slaughtering going? Because that's how I'm going to create my relationship with you. So for me, books started off from wanting to discover more. I knew the world was much bigger than who I was from TV and from magazines and things like that. So I didn't have money to travel the world. It's still one of my goals. I like the Japanese and things like that. I still want to go to Japs and see their culture because I just love their culture. So, but I've consumed a lot of Japanese content. So by the time I get to Japs, hey man, I'm going to be like, hi, hey, you know?
Like that though.
If it means anything at all.
That didn't mean anything. But listen, I love it. Japan also one of my favorite countries. One of my favorite countries ever. If there's anything that I've learned from the Japanese, it's how to communicate. You know, in most Western countries, we have this habit of writing words and expecting people to understand. Whereas in Japan, they do pictures. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I love it. I love it because like you go down the stairs and there's literally a sign there that shows you of someone going slip and then smacking on the back of the head to don't run. You know, it's just so clear. You can't mess it up. It blows me away how easy it is to miss a sign already. People will just write like, you know, from management, don't leave the taps open or something. But if you just had a picture that said, you know, like close, or just like you have the tap running and then you put an X on it, that is very, very clear. And they're all literate people.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? And we live in a culture, a society of mostly illiterate people, but we write signs and expect people to read. It's just not logical, right? So Japan, you must go. Oh man, I think you'll love it, because especially with around what you've read, and I think it'll. I've loved that place. I've been there a few times, so Japan has been phenomenal. Oh, that's awesome, TJ. So I want to jump in on I want to just so when you, I mean, this is building, right? So you constantly learning, you constantly testing, tweaking, trying, and you're doing a lot. You're working regularly. What is, so nowadays we have this culture, this understanding of, you know, you got to work yourself to death, right? I'm going to say work yourself to death, but nobody says it like that. They call it hustling. You know, they call it like, you know, hard working. You got to be hard working. In just because now we're also closing close to the end, in closing, like what would you sort of say around that, in terms of, because you evolved, right? You went from a hardworking business, but you worked from a business where you needed to work hard to working smarter, but you're not stopping. You keep on going. How do you sort of navigate that? What were the distinctions that you had in those learning?
100%. So I think that's a very good question. So for anyone else out there, you know, who's wanting to really dive in deeper on my next couple of statement, I'll encourage you to go and study, listen. the life of one of the greatest inventor and capitalist that is potentially ever lived, and his name is John D. the Baptist. No, it is John D. Rockefeller. So John, from all my readings, so John, he's like in the 1920s. I mean, this is when his era of fame came into be, and I don't think anything that we have right now in our households, we could maybe separate the Rockefellers from it. Mm. Because they need everything. I mean, John, he's long dead, but his legacy still lives on. Now, what is the one thing that I learned from John D? And a lot of us, we are in it either from the wrong side of it, or we actually don't know. And the terminology that I would like us, or kind of like to zoom into, is the term that's called leverage. Mm. Mm. It's a powerful word, Marlon. Now, I've now, and I'm not even, I don't think if I'm scratching the surface of leverage, Marlon. I don't think I am. It's amazing just go and listen to stuff around and read about John D. Rockefeller, how he's sort of like leveraged off a lot of things. So I'm going to talk to leverage about what I do. So number one, I'm in real estate, so I leverage off the banks. So I get money from the banks. I look for property opportunities, and for me, looking for property opportunities in terms of the lifespan of the property, it is 0.1%. Okay. So I go out, I look for the opportunity. It's a good deal, and then boom, I make my offer and I get it. The bank comes in, they give me the money. Okay. Right. And I give that property to my business partner. So I leverage off my business partner, who is my property manager. And guess what? He's also leveraging off me to look for the deals.
Right.
So there is a leverage on both sides there.
Yes.
Now, if you look into all my business partners, I'm going to show you how we leverage off each other. Now, my business partner, who's my property manager, I leverage off him for the long haul because he's the one who's going to manage this asset for us for the rest of our lives. He is the key man in the business. Hmm. However, he leverages off in that business that he's got. He's got employees. So now we are exchanging, from a leverage perspective, time and money. So we pay them, right, in that business. Mm. So we're leveraging off their skill and their time to come and manage our business.
Right. Right.
Now you see the ripple effect of leverage now. If you're an employee, then you are in the space of being leveraged off your skill and off your time. Is that bad? Depends on how you just look at it.
Right.
But if you're being leveraged off, many a times you are getting, you're getting paid to do something. So there's an exchange of time and skill.
Right.
But in my case, my time is very little in terms of looking for the deal. My time is very little in terms of closing the deal. And thereafter, I leverage, my food chain of leveraging is much bigger. Mm. Yeah. Mm. The same thing, I leverage off Rita. And Rita, she's our CFO, and I'm highly dependent on her to start tracking the numbers to say, are we doing okay? And if something is wrong, then she highlights to the team that something's wrong here. The expenses are going up too much. We're not collecting enough. And I'm leveraging off her skill. But I cannot leverage off her skill if we actually don't have the property opportunities. So she's also leveraging off me.
100%.
Now, that's the beauty of being now in a team, because all of us, we're all leveraging off each other. But I can, like, for instance, you've got a communication company. I don't have that skill. So I can leverage off your skill in your business. You become a service provider to me. I pay you a fee, and you run with what you know best. And with that, you now are also leveraging off me in terms of the income. But for me, you're a greater asset because you have a skill that I don't have. So I'm dependent on you. But on top of that, the dependence also comes with great leverage, because now I'm not only having the communications done, but I'm also learning in the process. And yes, I'm paying you, but there's a bigger benefit into my business. Right? So leverage, we don't, and I think when I discovered leverage, that's when I was like, oh no, I can do so much more. But here's the thing about leverage, and this is where I am right now in my business actually. When you leverage off things like this, how do you actually now track to make sure that whatever that's being implemented at an arm's length, because everything now is at an arm's length for you, right? Because someone else is doing it, because you're leveraging off that skill. How do you make sure that whatever that is supposed to be done is being done, and whatever result that you're getting, you are getting the result? Now, that's the true result of leveraging. Because what you're now doing is that you're putting up a project, so to speak. You're putting in the levers. How are we going to make sure that we are going to be winning and we're not losing, right? So you put a performance around it. And we've all been performance, we've all been perform managed at any one of our time, especially in the workplace, right? So you got outputs, and the results just needs to show, right? And so when you jump into the leverage game, the easiest example that I can give is the bank leverages off me to go and find a business for them. So the more I bring properties for them to buy, they are actually investing in that property for the next 20 years, 10 years, whatever the case is, right? So they're leveraging off my skill, my know-how of managing this asset so that I can pay them back.
Right.
So what is their lever to make sure that they are successful? I need to pay them every month. And that's it, right?
Right.
So in a nutshell, I've realized that the more I can do more, I can. I just need to be able to know if I'm to leverage off John, how then do I measure the leverage that I'm going to be getting from him? And am I getting that? Is it a daily tracking? Is it a weekly tracking? Is it, because if you are able to track it, then you can be able to tweak it for the results that you're wanting to get. But if you're not able to do that, then you are literally just spreading yourself thin. And with spreading yourself thin, what you're doing now is your foundation is also spread thin. And a foundation that's thin, we all know what happens to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, TJ. That is your pearls of wisdom. I'm sure like they're going to reverberate through the internet, but 100%, I totally agree with you. And I think what we didn't really talk about, but you showed it throughout everything that you're talking about, is that, and you mentioned it right in the beginning, is knowing yourself. And I think having to know who you are will help you better with what you want to leverage, how you can leverage, to whom to leverage to. But and obviously that last little bit, around measurements is key. It's key to knowing success. So thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy gentleman, And I appreciate your, this is awesome. So thank you very much. I think, you know, like you inspired me to come up with this new plan. And I'll share it with you another time. But definitely, we're gonna get you in on a different tip, and we're gonna talk about it. But looking forward to connecting. Look, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm literally everywhere is M5 Property Addicts, anywhere and everywhere, social medias, websites, things like that. But can I drop in a bonus before I leave, Marlon?
Sure.
And my bonus is going to come in from a family perspective. A lot of people, we jump into business when we actually have a family. So you got a wife, or you know, you got a spouse, and now you've got 1 or 2 kids, and it's whatever you're getting from your employer is not making sense. So you're now trying to find plan B. And that's great. But I also want to stipulate the fact that, for instance, when you've got a dream and you've got a spouse, because the dream lies in you, it many a times, you might not be articulating it well. They might not be getting it. They don't want to get it. They don't think that you can do it. This is your spouse. This is someone that you sleep with next door, and that's okay. And for that reason, if the dream is yours, you are the one who should be chasing it. Because what happens when you start chasing your dream and it starts coming into life, and this is maybe centered around a partner or things like that, but it's just centered around people around you. When Jesus went back into his hometown, he wasn't able to perform any miracles there, yet he was performing miracles everywhere. Why? Because people were not open to receive, because they knew who he was. They knew him as the boy from down the street. So for that reason, in the community, your own community might not see who you are until you are who you are. Does that make sense? And for that reason, now they then start to believing in you. They then start being your cheerleaders. But in the beginning, it might be extremely difficult to actually getting it. And this is why it's also important to just get or have the right partner who can support you in your wildest dreams. And if they're not supportive of you, it's okay. Support doesn't come instantly sometimes. It will come. Thank you, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much, TJ. That was awesome. I hope you have a wonderful day, weekend ahead. Well, yeah, we'll be in touch.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Marlon. And God bless and stay well to everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.